Welcome everybody. This is another episode. The first one that has a title doesn't matter. But I'm joined today with Dr. Courtney Jones.
Hey man.
Dr. Courtney Jones.
I know,
Dr.
man.
Jones.
I know, right?
It's like Indiana Jones, no?
Actually, there's a story behind it.
Okay.
But I'll tell you that one off camera.
Okay. Okay.
You hit on the nail.
I respect it. But anyways, he's otherwise known as the Caped Crusader of Cornet, right here. He's Batman himself, Bruce Wayne of the trumpet. Dr. Jones. He came from UCLA. Well, actually, where did you originally come from?
So, long story short, I was born in Rochester, New York, upstate New York. I come from a strong military family. And then my dad retired in Georgia. My parents, my mom and dad retired in Georgia, Columbus, Georgia. So, base above Columbus, Fort Benning. And so we lived in Columbus, and then from Columbus, did my secondary and undergrad there. Left Columbus, excuse me. Well, my undergrad was at Columbus University. Left Columbus, went to Winchester, Virginia, Shenandoah Conservatory, did my 2-year residency there. And then I moved to UCLA for the last 6 years, well, 5.5 years, 6 years, where I finished my doctorate and did a lot of film and television recording.
Film and TV recording?
Yeah.
Was that just studio work?
Studio work, film and TV. I was a part of Glee.
Glee?
Yep, I was on Glee. I paid the rent and paid the bills.
Okay.
Good hang for everybody. I did.
Wait, so you play the music for it?
I was on the show. Yeah, I was on the show.
You were on the show?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. There was a couple seasons 4 and 5. I was on the show. The Bitch Is Back, Wake Me Up Before You Go, and Diamonds. Okay. And then that was right before I went to Asia.
Were you acting or were you playing instruments?
I was doing both.
Okay.
I was doing both. You know, there was no speaking role, but it was an acting and instrument playing role, which was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It was
yeah,
quite lucrative, man. It was pretty hit, man. I was very fortunate to be a part of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was that around the time that I met you, or was that?
Yeah,
before?
that was right at the time, toward the end of it, before I went to Asia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met you, was it 2012?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I spent 12 and 13 as legal absence on doing research in Asia.
Yeah, I remember. We were over at Cal State Fullerton, and you were actually the one that you kind of changed my approach to the trumpet. I had been taking lessons with Barry Perkins at the time.
Great guy, man. Phenomenal player.
Unfortunately, Mark Garrett had passed away.
Yeah, I heard about
a year
that.
prior to that, and that was the person that I wanted to study with and who I actually went to Cal State Fullerton for.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't necessarily getting, like, Barry's a phenomenal player,
Oh.
but I wasn't necessarily getting what I needed as a teacher from him. But I remember that we had like a little one-on-one time, and you were just like, oh, play these drones, and you got me with those drones. You got me with those drones, and it's like it was just the sustained pitch in the background. You just play the scale of the drone, and you told me to just fall in and like feel that tension and those notes that aren't in tune, like feel it, get them in tune.
Yeah. Not so much tension, but feel the relaxation within the notes.
Okay.
Relaxation within the notes.
I remember the intervals, and you had me hold like some intervals that was just like just something like that was what I kept falling back on when I had to restart again, and it was just like, well, the only thing that I knew from that you actually had in common with Mark, it was the putting every note that comes out of your horn, make it the most musical thing that comes out. That's straight from Mark, but what I use is the long tone. Is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
That long tone love. That
long tone love. I like that. That's pretty hip. No, you know, it's imperative to understand that in order to play with others, you have to first play with yourself. Thank you. I'm here all night. I do weddings, parties, and bar mitzvahs. No, but you have to learn how to play in tune with yourself, right? And the beautiful thing about playing long tones or drones is that you're having a pitch that is unwavering. It does not move. So you know that this algorithm that's being produced while playing a note, you have to find how to solidify your own sound into that pitch. Ipso facto, playing in a section, right? One of the things that I kind of pride myself in is being fortunate to be around good people, good players, that show you, that know how to lead without telling you know, without saying, this is what I'm doing, you fucking do this, and blah, 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 blah. No, they play, and all you have to do is listen laterally, understanding what's happening to your left, what's happening to your right, in front of you, behind you. And when you learn how to play within a drone, for example, or a long tone, you begin to play within that sound, fit your sound into that pitch, and understand the intervallic relationship of what you're doing, right? So you were talking about intervals, you know, and understanding if you're sitting on tonic, you know that you go to the major second, and knowing where that lies, and then the major third, and knowing where that lies, and the perfect fourth, and the perfect fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh, and then ultimately the octave, and knowing where those intervals lie, even though you're with a fixed instrument, you train your ear, you train your body to pulsate, let me rephrase that, vibrate within that frequency. So when you're playing alongside someone else, you're instantly playing in tune. Now mind you, some people say, well, Doc, you know, I mean, A440 is A440. Right, when you tune.
Yeah.
But that same A is not necessarily A440 when you're playing in an ensemble or playing within an orchestral situation, because sometimes pitch wavers. But the question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to just stay on that, or are you going to listen to what's around you to help play and sound it too?
Have you encountered a situation where people don't like they're
Oh,
really
absolutely.
stubborn?
Yeah. I mean,
it's
they're like, this is where it is, you know. And as a section player, sometimes you have players, you know, who are principal players, and they're like, this is where it's at, and they're very unwavering, and you just got to go. But then you also, and I learned more from the principal players that would play, and then they would help you listen to what they're doing. It's like, you see what I'm doing here, or I want you to listen to the flutes, I want you to listen to the tubas, I want you to put your sound into the lowest sounding notes so that you can be seen as a drum. You know, and over the years, over my trajectory in school and whatnot, you start to realize that, man. It's like you listen down to the section, you listen within the section, and it's all about listening, so that when you execute said note, boom, it's there within the proverbial pocket. Yeah, man.
Well, how long have you played?
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Your second week?
This is my second week playing trumpet, man. I know jack shit of it. No. Yeah. Geez. How long have I been playing the horn?
Well, you were telling me you got through the Arbans at a very young age. You were already making adjustments. That's...
Well, I didn't know, you know? I mean, there was something within me that I felt, you know. I was like, maybe I should play this note, or maybe that note's different, or maybe that note is different. But there comes a process where you have to learn the foundation. And the Arbans is the foundation, much like the stamp and the Chickowitz and all that. But for me, the Arbans was a very good foundation. So I probably have been playing about 22 years.
22?
Yeah, about 22 years.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. And I still don't know what I'm doing.
Hey.
At all. You know, every day is a new day, you know. Dizzy Gillespie talks about, he says this quote, when you wake up one day and you play the horn, you win, right? Then you wake up the next day and you play the horn wins. And you keep going back and forth between this battle of you winning, the horn winning, you winning, the horn winning. But ultimately, you die and the horn still wins.
Yeah.
You know?
Damn.
So, I know, man.
Damn.
It's hip. It's hip. That's deep. You know?
That's big.
But that's the process of learning how to tame the beast, if you will. And the beautiful thing about that, it keeps it new, it keeps it fresh, because the more that I practice, the more that I realize that I don't know anything, or I'm still discovering new things within my own trajectory of playing the horn. And it's hip, man. It really is. And I feel very fortunate to have had those experiences of listening to my mentors, listening to my teachers, and realizing and fighting them almost to the point where I understand what they're saying. You know, like, not physically fighting, obviously, but metaphorically fighting the horn, and then versus allowing it to just happen. You know what I mean?
So that sounds like one of those Jedi moments, you know, where you're just like, oh, don't use the blade. You know, there's no weight to the lightsaber. You can just...
It's very interesting you talk about Jedis. I myself am a Jedi Sith, and you're probably asking me, well, how can you be a Jedi Sith? That's known as the Gray Jedi.
The Gray Jedi?
The Gray Jedi.
The Gray.
A Gray Jedi. There's, you know, there's like, there are many Jedis, you know, but then there's only one Sith, an apprentice and the master. But the Gray Jedi, we kind of like to say, you know what, fuck it. I enjoy using my emotions when I'm performing, and and I also enjoy listening to my surroundings. And so, like the Jedi, they believe in the metachlorians, you know, within their body, and using
the what?
Metachlorians.
Metachlorians?
Those are those little minuscule things that are in the bodies that allow them to do their powers and whatnot.
Okay.
But they believe in everything around them. The same thing concept when you're listening in an ensemble or an orchestra or just an ensemble in general. You have to listen to what's around you in order to see what's happening. And at the same time, you gotta evoke an energy if you have a soul or not. You have to feel something when you're performing. The Sith, they feel things. They use their anger, they use their love, they use their hate, they use everything to showcase their power. But if you use a little bit of both, I think it's okay. Understanding what your surroundings are, using that to your advantage, at the same time emoting an energy to convey that to what you're playing to the audience or those who are listening.
So that, in essence, you're reaching a point of balance.
Sure. Always trying to bring balance to the force. Always trying to bring balance.
So that's real. You know, there's the good, there's the bad, but you don't really see that in the movies.
No, you don't. But you know, it's interesting when you talk about balance, and obviously, you know, these metaphors for other things. But in life, there is a balance. You have the good, you have the bad. You know, you have hot and cold, you have sharp and dull. You know, there's always a balance. That's the natural order of things. And in music, there is also a balance. You know, and knowing that balance and understanding what that balance is and just figuring it out, you know, you begin to use that as an experience. You know, you begin to not only use it, but utilize that in your everyday practice, your daily association in regards to conversating, or whatever. And conversation doesn't necessarily mean physical talking. It can also be talking music, having musical dialogue, you know, in a collaborative consort. You know, so it's always trying to find that balance.
It's funny that you say that. That's one of the reasons that I went out to Minneapolis right now.
It's cold up there, man.
Yeah, it's you're telling me. Coming from California, I know you spent some time there. Living in LA, I was born and raised there. I kind of was living there. I was going to Cal State Fullerton, and then after some circumstances, I just went on the road. I mentioned earlier that I went to record for 2 weeks and I stayed, and then I had a gig, and then that led to another gig, and then 4 gigs later, on Halloween, I was like, I'm staying.
Right. It's funny how life works that way, huh?
Yeah.
If you listen, the universe will speak to you. The question is, are you vibrating in the same frequency in which the universe is spinning? You know? And I believe that if you are exactly where you need to be in your trajectory of your life, you know, some people think, well, you know, all this stuff is happening to me and blah, 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 blah. Then I ask them, well, who are you hanging out with? Who's your support group? Who are your surroundings? Do you have good energy versus bad energy? You know? And there is this added saying that like-minded individuals tend to gravitate one another. It's the same concept. You know, there's a theory out there that says, you know, the reason why people, I guess, throw shade or don't like a person is because they have something that they want. And so what they do, they'll come to you and just gravitate towards you and pull all your energy. And you're like, man, why am I always tired? Or why am I angry? You know, and they're still pulling you. It's like a succubus just drawn, like a
vampire.
Yeah.
I call it a vampire.
Yeah. You know, Miguel Ruiz, out of his book, The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements.
He talks about the matoto, the smoke in which you can't see. And sometimes people just gravitate for it because that's all they know. They're just poisonous individuals, very toxic, you know, and you can either allow them to take your energy or you can block that and then move on. And that's the beautiful thing about that is that once you block it, they get upset. They no longer take your power and they're getting pissed, you know, about it. They're getting upset. And you're like, this is closer. Can you get a little closer? You know? And so when you realize that, you then control your own power. Then you're able to utilize it to what you want. So that when you realize I don't need to hang around you, you find other people that you can gravitate towards, and instead of them always taking your power, when you feel depleted, they're like, oh, here you go. Let me put a little bit more water in your cup.
Yeah.
And then, oh, you're depleted. Let me put a little bit more water in your cup. No, let me put a little more water in your cup. And then you all are growing together. like-minded individuals, because you start to recognize that. And then as you get older through your experiences and you mature musically as well as physically and intellectually, then you begin to see which is really out there. You know, in regards to that balance, in regards to you figuring out your true memory. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of what I was seeking.
Mm-hmm.
I think in my journeys, I have it written on like my SoundCloud, like, oh, I went out in search of water. You know, the running joke, California's in a drought.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I went out in search of water, but I found life.
Interesting.
I found my own life. I found people that really were just giving me this love, that were giving me this energy that I was definitely vibing with. I was playing, having these conversations, feeling this balance, you know, through meditation, through group meditation, through these different things, and it was all natural, it was all real.
Sure.
And these real moments just kept adding up, and it kept coming back. And even when we would jam, when we would play together, I was like, this is what I need right now. And then through spending more and more time away from home, away from Los Angeles, I was just like, oh man, I could see literally the toxic air about it for me right now. And the more time I spent away from it, the more time I spent amongst water, and I see how healing it was to be amongst life, to be amongst nature. Like I went in search of like waterfalls. I went a little bit, you know. I was living in the woods, living in music festivals and all that. I was really, really dirty, really just, you know, hair really smelly, I imagine. But it was awesome. You mentioned earlier about being on top of a mountain.
Oh yeah.
Where was that? That was in.
So when I spent my time at leave of absence, I went to Macau. Macau, China.
Okay.
And I was working for the Sands Ltd. Venetian. I was a musician there and became one of the arrangers. And at the same time, I was also meeting individuals that were in the Macau orchestra would let me to perform with the orchestra. And leaving Los Angeles, getting away from the traffic, getting away from just the amount of people.
Mention that word, like.
I know, man. I feel like I'm gonna punch a baby in the face. I'm joking.
There's no babies.
I know, right? Good deal. No, but seriously, you know, just getting away from all that and just sitting on this mountain in Kowloon, which is a village outside of Macau, or Kowloon, sorry. Kowloon's in Hong Kong. And there's this beautiful temple called Ama Temple. Ama was the goddess of the sea. Ama. And I was at the temple. I was just sitting at this mountain, very high up, and I was just doing long times, man. Again, droning, you know, just and it's very beautiful about drones. It allows you to see what happens and remember to talk to you about that. And then all of a sudden, I had this revelation, I had this epiphany, and I began to cry, man. With each tear, I just felt all that baggage that was in my body just leave my body that I had built up. And this is not just like tears of sadness, but this is tears of joy, of like understanding why.
Was it sobbing or just?
No, I wasn't just sobbing, but it just like watered down, you know, just letting go.
The release.
Exactly.
The release.
It was a release, and and what had happened, I just saw flash in front of my eyes the people that I've come into contact with, my parents, my friends, my mentors, my teachers telling me certain things, you know, life lessons, music things, you know, it just all came to the point, and I began to understand and see, you know, internally what I was doing with my life. It was the most beautiful and precious thing, man. It was hip. It was an awakening. It was a spiritual awakening, and I took that to a whole other level. I came back with a whole other concept, another conceptual ideology of what my path is, why I met the people I did, why I end up making the choices I did. And I began to just stop asking questions.
Yeah, there's definitely an air of certainty to what you're saying. Like,
yeah, I was talking to my brother. My brother is a former Navy SEAL, and you know, he's one of the deacons, past reverend at his church, and very methodological thinker, person. And I asked him, I was like, you know, you ever just sit and ask you know, why this and why that. It's like, oh, why this happens. Like sometimes if you keep asking questions, you end up missing out on what was there for you. You know, like you say blessings or the people that you need to meet. Instead of just saying why, just saying, all right, and go on. Quit questioning shit.
Yeah.
Because when you stop questioning, then you begin to see, in my opinion, what the universe provides. You know, regardless of one person's religious affiliation or ideology, there is a universal concept. You know, and I firmly believe in that. If you ask the universe, if you ask this or proclaim this, then it will then manifest itself in the physical reality. Because everything we do is psychosomatic.
Well, that's the act of visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Visualization is the first step to realization,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to take the steps to. That just falls in line. It's something similar that I gathered, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
through my experiences and whatnot. I kind of never really fell into one religion. I ended up practicing yoga early 2010. I just was doing it as a workout at first, but wasn't realizing like I fell in love with the feeling that you get after an hour and a half of intense like yoga, intense like just sweating and posture, everything.
Well, a lot of people don't realize is that even when I do Bikram yoga,
Okay.
and
That's the hot.
yeah,
The
hot yoga.
Okay.
And a good friend of mine, and colleague Bob Waters, is a former associate principal of LA Phil Horn, and was the first person of color in that orchestra. And he introduced me to yoga and Bikram yoga when I first moved to LA, and I almost died the first time, not literally, but I was like, man, this is not hell, 114-degree room.
Hot and heavy.
Hot and heavy, you know, but the more that I got into it, the more I realized is that when you get in these positions and you start to sweat, you're purging those toxins, whether they are external, internal, you're purging all those toxins out of your body. And you come on that feeling relieved, as if a weight had been lifted off your shoulder. And the beautiful thing about that is that once you understand that, but then truly understand that when you sweat and you get in these positions and you're pushing all that stuff, you're getting around. In a way, that was the thing that I felt when I was crying. You know, I was purging, you know, and it's okay to cry, man. Hell, I'll admit it. You know?
There's no shame, no shame.
No.
It had been a long time since I had been, well, after having 2 years of being isolated in the room, I kind of didn't. I wanted to be out there, and I remember going to Arizona, and at the beginning of my journey, I went to Arizona, and we partied in Phoenix for a little bit, and met some friends, and then we drove up to the Grand Canyon, and I remember just getting lost. That was the deal. It was like we're just gonna
Getting
go.
lost physically or mentally?
Getting lost physically. Like we're like no maps, no cell service. Let's just live at the Grand Canyon for a couple of days. So that's what I did. You know, the bear shit in the woods. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, pretty much. And I found my bliss. Like how you said at the top of the mountain, I just pulled up a chair. It was just a knocked over tree, you know, out there. I just sat out there with my horn, looked at the surroundings, kind of just.
Yeah.
And again, I played long tones too, man. I played a G all day. Yeah. I just played a G, and I just saw the birds just like fly by. I saw like a baby. I don't know if it was a moose or something like one of the. I don't know what the animal was.
It was just like in the Grand Canyon.
Probably like
probably a deer.
A deer. It was big. I just knew that. You know, it just plopping on by.
Right.
I was like, this is incredible. This is magical. Like this is what I need.
Well, and that was where you needed to be at that time in your life. You know, and for you, maybe that tree needed to be there, and that allowed you to think of something within your life in which you were going through, regardless of that at that moment or previous. But you needed to be there and experience that moment. And a lot of people, I believe, don't realize that. You know, that sometimes the people or occurrences that we come across, and the things that we come across, they are there because we need to be there. You know, there's another saying that says, you know, sometimes, you know, people get upset when people leave their lives or they are no longer talking with them. But what they don't realize is that there's a higher calling to that person may not need those individuals in their lives, And so there's a reason why some people leave their lives, so they can make room for other individuals that need to be there, you know? And a lot of people just don't see that. They think, oh, this and this, and woe is me, blah, blah, blah. We all have issues. Everybody has problems. You're not the only one. Welcome to the club. You want a cookie?
The human club.
You know, welcome to the club. But you know, you learn how to navigate through that. You know, and for you, you needed that. You needed just to sit and be still. Just sit and be still, because we as people, we always are in the rush with the new advent of technology, cell phones, iPads, all this other crap. You know, these little chips in our, I mean, everything is about the new, the cutting edge.
The hip,
you know. But when's the last time we just kind of stopped? Let Ixion's wheels stop turning just for a second. And then we can go on.
Yeah.
Just to pause and be still. Because when you're still, I honestly believe the universe speaks to you. God speaks to you. When you're silent in those questions that you're looking for, you calm your mind, calm your body, calm your soul. Then you will have a conversation. You know? And when you do that, man, the universe will open up. Definitely open up.
It's funny you say that. There was, at the end of the first season that I went with the Peace Love Tacos, I went on this taco adventure. It was in Michigan. It was a forest in Michigan. I remember it was late one night, and I remember just feeling this numbness in my lips, but just being in this state of, I was in a forest. Like our tents were right there. The moon was shining. It was like 2 in the morning. I remember just sitting there, speaking in Spanish to this other guy who could speak Spanish. We were the only ones. We were going back and forth really, really fast. And then I remember just being filled with this peace. I was still in pain from recovering from a past injury, but
Sure.
I remember that the only thing on my mind was that pain is temporary. Pain will pass. And I remember there was just this mantra, this one thing just in the back of my mind that kept repeating itself over and over again while I was in that forest, while I was in that spot. It said, let your lips guide you. The music will guide you. Let your lips take you there.
Yeah.
And that was like, just that numbness was very foreign to me. I had never, like, your lips numb for no reason. And I was just like, I associated to the trumpet.
Sure.
But that moment that I experienced allowed me to trust into this musical journey. That's why I kind of was just like, I need to play. I need to go out there and I need to just find a place where I can play. I need to keep playing. I need to, like...
Right.
Ooh.
You know, it's interesting.
I actually found that in the library.
So many people, in my opinion, are unhappy. Now, I want you to take this and listen very carefully. I'm not talking about unhappy in the sense of, you know, their self-worth, but just internally not fulfilled. They're unhappy. And one of the reasons I believe, I don't know everything, and I don't claim that I do, but, this may change tomorrow, you know, or after this conversation. But for now, I honestly believe that so many people can't differentiate their passion from their gift, what they were created to do. You know, I say that in an analogy of, let's say someone who loves cooking, the culinary arts. I love to eat, you know, I'm thinking about that because I'm hungry. I might have some Chinese food. But they love cooking, they love the culinary arts. But they end up doing something completely different in their life. They make a pretty good living at it, but they're not fulfilled. They're not happy. Yeah, they make a living because someone told them to do it, you know, versus them really believing in what they want to do. So their passion is not their gift. Their passion is that job that they're doing, but their gift is cooking or creating within the culinary aspect. And for me, I think that if they had a support group that was surrounding around them and say, hey, you know what, this is what you want to do, I will support you 110%, no matter what. We'll do it together. Then I honestly believe that then it would then flip to where their gift is cooking, and they will be living and doing exactly what they want to do, like making a living doing it. You know, I was very fortunate growing up in my house. I'm the baby of 3 kids. And
including yourself?
Including myself. And my parents, you know, I love my mom, I love my dad, I love my family, but my parents were like, all right, what do you want to do? My brothers, you know, they were all military, very active in sports. My sister as well, very savvy business. You know, and I was also in sports too, but I saw things differently, you know? I felt things differently. And I did music. I never thought I was going to do music, but I taught myself how to play piano at a very early age. How to read and play. My sister's books, you know, like put the finger here, and that's what that picture does. You turn the page. Oh, okay, cool. At a very early age. So piano was my first thing. But I began to hear things different. I began to see. I began to feel the music, not realizing what it was. And then 6th grade, you know, I wanted to play violin. You know, when you they get your band, and it's like, well, what instrument do you want to play? I want to play this. Very cool. I ended up going in thinking I'm going to play violin. I'm playing trumpet. But I loved that. Yeah, I was doing other things, but there's something about music that I felt a connection to, you know. And went to school, not thinking I was going to, you know, end up in music, and I was going to do business minor. I had my minor in business marketing and management. And I put school on hold, you know. There was a part of my life, you know, it's just like, well, hell, I don't know what I wanted to do. And I was running one of the Fortune 500 company, you know, as an assistant co-manager. But there was something, I'm making great money, really good money for my age, you know, but there was something missing out of my life. And it was in music. And regardless of the amount of money I made, I wasn't happy doing it. I would see my friends, you know, we would still talk. I would go to the concerts. I would see what they're doing. Like, man, I missed this. What? You guys are having so much fun. You know, and the people that I was surrounded with, that I was not no longer in the music, they didn't understand me. I didn't understand them. It's like, what are you talking about? You have any passion in what you do? You're full of shit. I'm serious.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
And I left. I went back to school, finished my undergrad, went to my master's, took some time off for my doctorate, then took some time off and came back. And I didn't realize until my doctorate what my passion, what my gift was. Now, anything I do, I put my mind to it, I'll do it. But I had that support group behind my parents. This is what you want to do? Boom, let's do it. This is what I do? Boom, let's do it. You know, we didn't have a lot of money at all. You know, but my mom made sure that, and my dad made sure that we were taken care of. You know, and they said, "This, you're going to do this, and this is what you're going to do." And yes, ma'am, yes, sir. And you know, it was interesting. And I knew that I felt it when my dad came to one of my concerts. He rarely ever leaves the house. I started crying. You know, like, what, man? I saw my mom like in the audience. And he's sitting here crying. This man that can crush you with his bare hands was weeping because he saw his son playing music. And then it's like, and then now I can't get my dad to shut up about it. You know, I love it. You know? Yeah. Why don't you come home and play the trumpet? I'm not playing anything for nobody. They want to see me, go to my website. You know, Google me. I'm just joking. But no, yeah, well, you know, but it's. I had that support. Even though I teach here at the university and I perform all over the world, I'm a soloist, I've been able to do many different things in my trajectory, and I'm still doing that. I don't see it as a job.
Yeah.
It's what I was created to do. Education and performance. That's my gift. You know, I have passion for many other things, but my gift is music. My gift is education and allowing to give back to what was once given to me. It's beautiful, man.
It is.
It's very beautiful.
It is.
And when you vibrate the same frequency in which the universe turns, hey man, the sky's the limit, in my opinion. It really is.
I think more recently, I found myself trying to follow through and deepen some of my passions. I found that I've always liked certain things, and I was just like, oh, well, I need to do something with it. And
But you have to figure out what your passion is, what you're passionate about, and what your gift is. When you figure that out, and here's the beautiful thing, you may never figure it out, but if you're willing to figure that out, then with each step you'll figure out, oh, I like this, or I'm really good at this, and the universe is saying, you're good at this, you're good at this, you're good at this, you are great at this, but you have to listen to what the universe is telling you. Because if you don't, you'll be telling you left and right, but you're not listening, you're oblivious to the whole thing, you may never know. Allow yourself to be still, and the universe will speak to you. Pulsate a proverbial rippling effect of what you want your trajectory to be, and it will come back to you sevenfold. I honestly believe in that. That's why I think, there always is the balance. You have to put into the universe what you get back. And when you do that, it'll help open up your third eye, if you will.
yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that, regardless of what conceptual ideology you want to believe or what religious affiliation you follow, there is one concept of love and being able to be subservient to that gift in which you were created for. And when you do that, you'll find out what your passion. But you got to be able to figure it out. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to figure it out today. You don't have to figure it out tomorrow. You have to figure it out next week. Take it by step, by step, by step. So many people, this is, again, with unhappy people, man. So many people are so worried about the future or so worried about the past that they forget that they're living in the present.
Yep.
It's like, you live now. Live in the moment.
I forget to live.
Breathe in the moment, in the present, and allow your future to unfold. Versus, it's good to have a goal. Don't get me wrong. It's good to have a dream. It's good to have a path. But if you're always focusing on that future aspect, or always focusing on the past of what was versus what is, then it becomes what can be. It's very different how you see certain things in the vantage points. Again, the power of three. Was, is, can. 3 prime divided by itself is 1 universe. So everything is within its framework. If you see how to read past lines. It's a formula. It's a simple formula. Macro to micro. But what do I know?
Nothing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely vibe with that, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think going around and traveling and finding a spot where I'm at right now, I feel like I'm definitely a lot closer to where I need to be if I'm not already there.
Right.
There's a sense of peace of mind that I reach. There's these colors that just fill my mind when I'm actually like really in the thick of it, and I'm just like outside. I mentioned getting used to the cold out in Minnesota. That's been a bitch and a half, honestly.
I could believe it, man. It's cold up there.
I actually listened to this one podcast where they had he's known as the Iceman, which is this one dude who can hold his breath in ice water for like 7 to 10 minutes.
Screw that.
He holds the record. See, he does this, but he was on the Joe Rogan Experience. He's talking about these exercises that he was doing since he was like 17. And he's like, I just jumped in this frozen water, and he's like, and I just conquered it doing this breathing. And he talks through like the breathing exercises, and he actually takes groups of people and he teaches them this breathing method, and they go climb Mount Kilimanjaro in shorts and shoes. That's it. No shirt, just shorts and shoes, because it's too damn slippery for your feet, and that's it. They climb all the way. I
will watch him do it on TV in my house.
They did it in 3 days, and then the second time he did it with another group, they did it in 2, and then they cut 16 hours off that. He's done it multiple times, like, holy shit. And so, me to kind of put myself out there, he talks about just these chemicals and these things in your body that your body was designed to naturally prepare you to do, that we used to do. Now we have these clothes, these layers, these things that keep us warm, that keep us protected. But it ends up making us, physically weaker. They baby us. So for me, I was just like, this is cold. I need to do something about this. Like, what happens if if I have to be outside? If I don't have my jacket, I was just like, I want to be prepared to take that. And it also strengthens your immune system. So I've been actually out in sandals, in shorts, sometimes without a shirt. I started with 40-degree weather. I was just, in horse stance, doing this breathing and just holding this deep breath and doing these repeated breaths. And eventually, after 3 or 4 cycles, I get into this meditative state. It feels just like I get hit by a train of peace. That's what it feels like. Like it just, and I just get in this zone. And then I go practice, I go do everything else that I need to.
Sure.
Like, it gets me warmed up, and even my body temperature has been rising in the cold. I'm not wearing anything, but even that, like, the people, my roommates, they see me and they're like, you're not cold. They touch me and they're like, holy crap, like, you're like, you're warm. And I was like, yeah.
Well, it's a state of mind. I mean, it's conditioning. Anything you learn is a conditioning process in which you train the body to adapt to your surroundings. This individual who's been doing it since he was 17. So apparently, through trial and error, he's learned how to adapt to his situation. When you move to a new place, coming from a warmer climate to a colder climate, you learn to adapt. And the beautiful thing about adapting to things is that once you adapt, then you can control, versus not adapting and being consumed by what you can't control. And it goes with anything. It doesn't matter if it's, in that case, it's the weather. In this case,
it's funny how he came to it, and I think you might actually find that interesting. It's like he he has 4 kids and he had a wife, which she unfortunately committed suicide. So that put him in just this depression, and he went all over. He lived in Asia, and he learned all these different yogic teachings to kind of master his body, and he went through all this to kind of find peace within himself, but he couldn't find a teaching that could find him fulfillment, no matter how hard it was, no matter what the discipline was. He couldn't find one, so he kind of combined everything, and ultimately he chose to use the cold as his god, because that was the one constant in his life. He said the cold was unwavering, it was just always present. That was something that he couldn't escape no matter what, so his body had to kind of conquer that. And just using this, like you mentioned earlier, whatever your denomination was, his denomination was the cold, something that people don't even think about. Sure. That it's just Mother Earth just being a certain temperature. Him conquering that kind of put him in that state of mind. That's where he found his bliss.
Right.
Being in this just, it's just remarkable.
No, absolutely. No. I mean, and it's important too. It's imperative to know that everybody has their own path. What may work for you may not necessarily work for me. What may work for me may not necessarily work for you. What may work for these other individuals in this room may not necessarily work for anybody except for them. Mm-hmm. And if it's true to you, obviously, then and it allows you to, I don't know, kind of give back or become sustained within society, then so what? Do it. As long as you're not hurting anybody, you're not hurting yourself, and it allows you to find your peace. Where if you're able to still yourself to listen to what's around you, good, And I think it's important. Everybody has their own trajectory, and I think so many people need to realize that. Every generation is different. What may work for my parents may not necessarily work for me. And it may work for me, not necessarily work for my parents. But it works for the moment. And then as you get older, as you mature,
as the times change,
as the times change, you begin to adapt, or learn how to weave through that concept. And I think once you understand how to do that, again through your upbringing and through what you see, what around you and your surroundings, then you figure out what to do and or what not to do to help get you to that next step. And for him, that was fearing that unwavering, relentless cold that allowed him to just focus and channel his energy to find his center.
Well, it's funny how you, well, not funny, but you speaking about that. Like me learning about the Iceman was just another step. early on when I was limited to my room or the pool, even when it was cold, say 40 degrees, that's cold for California. Even when it was that, I was still in the pool, finding my bliss in the water, finding that like I would go in the ocean during winter time in California because it wasn't that cold.
Sure.
For me, it was just like on the state of mind. I had heard like these jiu-jitsu dudes talk about going to Japan during the winter and seeing just the snow around them. It was the Gracie family. I don't know if you're
I know Gracie's.
Yeah, and I think
I know of them. I don't know them personally.
Rickson, I don't know. One of them. I think it was like father and son, and the father just jumps in this freezing cold water, and he's just there, just with that stillness of mind, and he's like making fun. And Brazilians, you know, they like talk shit. Right? In the fighting world, they do that. So he's talking to his son. He's like, you can conquer anything. You can conquer even the cold. He's just like, you just have to.
It's a state of mind, man. Mm-hmm. It's a state of mind, and then manifesting what you want into physical reality. You know, and when you think about this Western lines of thought of how people can move things, or Tai Chi, or Buddhism, or Hindu, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's just something different. It's a cultural thing compared to what a lot of people think in regards to an American concept, you know. But I believe there's a little bit of greatness in everything, you know. You just got to figure it out, you know. You have to be open-minded to know or to acknowledge. You don't have to know, but just to acknowledge that there are things that are different that may work for other individuals, but not you.
Yeah.
It's those who say, well, this is the tell-all and that's it. We can't be friends. Good night. Good.
Yeah.
I'm asleep.
Yeah.
Because that automatically lets me know that you are not willing to acknowledge that you may not be correct.
Yes.
Or there are other things outside of your trajectory that make sense to other people, but not necessarily you.
Yeah.
Why can't you accept that? Well, because you know what? I've already lost all conversation. Interest in this conversation. I'm going to go boil some water.
It's almost
That's
like
more interesting.
Well, you're coming into contact with someone with limits, and as you put that energy out there, you say you want to bring like-minded people. You put that energy to surround yourself with these people.
Sure.
Like I think I seek those people that don't believe in limits. I seek those people that believe that they can accomplish every single thing that they set their mind to.
Sure, but let me interject for a second, but you got to be careful. You got to be careful because if you open yourself up too much, you might let in an energy that not necessarily should be a part of your trajectory.
You know, that's happened before.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about it, through experience, you should know that that is also out there. Again, you have that balance of good and bad.
Absolutely.
And there's good energy and there's also bad energy. But you should, over the years, you'll know what's good and what's bad.
You get better at it.
And you get better of deciphering, oh, I'm not going to deal with this person, I'm not going to deal with this person. I learned this from my mom, and I speak of my mom a lot. And I really love my mom. And I love my dad.
Moms are awesome.
Yeah, but, I love my mom. My mom, it's like, she sacrificed, my dad too, but, I think mothers sacrifice a lot. They carry us for 8 to 9 months, physically, then they carry us again for the rest of their lives. To this day I'll go home, and I was like, all right, I just hugged my mom and just dropped. She's like, baby, you are like 117,000 pounds. Get off me. I'm like, Mama, or I'll call my mom. I was like, Mom, just tell me it's going to be okay. He still needs that.
Yeah.
Or Dad, tell me it's going to be okay. It's all right, son. Just that reassurance of what you're doing is all right if it's done in the correct way.
Yeah.
Or just say, hey, Mom, huh? I just want to call. What? You want to? No? Bye. Or, Mama, what? How you doing? Courtney, get off the phone, please. Just a little bit, just so that there is that connectivity.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a reassurance is, all right, it's cool, and then sometimes you just need that boost, and they know also how you doing, or I'm just going to call you because you were in my mind, you're in my thought. There was this psychic connection, a bond, that you have with someone that carried you for 9 months.
My mom definitely called me on that. She was just like, she'll wake up in the middle of the night and she'll know that something happened. She was just like, what happened?
What's going on?
She could tell through my voice. Like, we're thousands of miles away, and then she's just like, no, you need to tell me what happened.
Because they're psychic, man. Mm-hmm. Moms know. Even when they say, I don't know what's going on, they know what's going on, like, right to this day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I still believe that before I even do something weird, I look around to see my mom's hiding behind a corner. She's like, when you go into this house, you know you represent me and your father. Don't you be doing nothing stupid. I'm watching you. I know what you're doing. That scares the shit out of you, man. To this day, I'm scared about it. You know, but no, it's important. And I'm kind of off subject for a second, but it really is important to understand that trajectory and know, in my opinion, you know, that if you allow yourself to be open, you can begin to see different things and how they're set up. And it's a beautiful thing, man.
Incredibly beautiful.
I believe so.
You actually, I think when I first met you, I don't know how much touring you had done. Mm-hmm. I just remember everyone was trying to just kind of spend time with you because you were just this really interesting cat that, you know, you were from UCLA, you're getting a doctorate, you're just this interesting trumpet player, and you were leagues beyond everyone around us. That. And for me, I was just like, sweet. And you gave me the symbols lesson, but to me, that was cool. And when I heard that you were going to be traveling and playing, I was just like, damn, like that's damn. Like,
well, that was the agreement that I made to the universe, I mean to God. I was like, allow me to test the water. By testing, I mean metaphorically speaking, of certain things, of traveling and performing and X, Y, and Z, which is, you know, is happening and it's currently happening. But I wanted to make that happen, you know. And for me, you know, I don't know, man. I began to think differently. I'm glad I moved to LA, but I began to think differently and see the world differently, and meeting interesting people, and meeting people who were traveling and who were performing, and being in the studio singing, and dealing with individuals, you know, that had taken me under their wings and said, okay, this is how you need to such and such, and blah, 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 to sustain this, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, I'm writing this down, okay, what else? Okay, hold on, I gotta get a new pad, okay. You know, and then just becoming a sponge and soaking it all up. And it was cool just to meet you guys, man. And it was a really cool hang. And for me, it's about the hang. You know? It's about the hang. And you know, I'm still learning shit. I don't know everything, man. You know, but I don't claim to know everything. But what I do know is that I'm always learning and always trying to figure out the next step, or the next thing, or how to sustain my trajectory within my own world. You know?
So is there like a metaphorical planet? You keep mentioning trajectory. Like, are you like a rocket ship trying to land somewhere? Are you shooting? Like, is there one?
No, well, I believe we're always trying to ascend to another level, a higher plane. Mm-hmm. You know, we are. Well, let's look at it this way. We have people in our lives that we idolize, you know, the greats, if you will, regardless if they're musicians or actors or, you know, painters.
Your influence.
Your people that you are very influenced by, and they are also very influenced. Then you ask yourselves, how did they get there? You know, what are they doing? And for me, it's just like I use this Avatar analogy of, you know,
like Airbender, or
no, the Avatar. When they like take their tails and stick it in the tree, and they're like, oh, we're all connected and blah 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 blah. Well, honestly, I believe that we are. They are a part of this ethos that everybody touches on. We can also connect into that. The question is, how do we get there? How do we get to that ethos? How do we get to that nucleo of power, of got it, you know? And the way that we do that, we have to kiss it. Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple.
We overanalyze things, you know, to the point of you gotta get to this point, you gotta get to this point, you gotta get to this point. Like, no, just keep it simple, macro to micro, from the biggest to the smallest, and understand that if you keep it simple, it is simple. It's a formula, you know? It's like in music, everything is about formula. Everything is about pattern. The pattern is always the same. The pattern doesn't change, but the notes may differ, but the pattern stays the same. Kind of like doing stamp. Ba-dee-dee-da-dee-dee-da. Go down the half step. Ba-dee-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-dee-dee-doo-dee-dee-da. If you don't realize it, the pattern is the same. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. The notes are just different. But if you understand the pattern, it opens up a world of difference depending on what you're trying to do. Look at Clark. It's the same pattern, it's just moving down, half step, or semitones, depending on what you look at, or ascending. But if you understand the pattern, it makes it easier. And through repetition, it gets easier and easier and easier and easier and easier. So where you are now in your trajectory, you were not 7 years ago. Hell, when I first saw the Clark, I looked at my teacher, I was like, you crazy, man. You're crazy.
When I first, Barry, I remember that was one of the, like, moments. I remember he was just like, play the card. He was like, he was like, tongue every, I was like, but he's like, tongue it. And I'm doing that,
Right.
And he's all like, eventually, and he does it. He's just like,
And then here's the thing, and another thing you realize is that there's only, I practice somewhere between like 5 to like 7.5 hours
a day.
Yeah.
A day. When did that start?
Oh man, that started in my undergrad. That's why I have insomnia now.
Oh.
But when you realize that there's only so much that the chops can take, because it's a sphincter muscle. There are 2 sphincter muscles that you have, that you know of. There are many, but there you know of. Your chops and your, okay? I had a teacher tell me one time, when you're playing the instrument, it has to be easy. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? You're doing this because you're like, no, let me show you. Imagine yourself sitting on the toilet, smoking a cigar. That's how easy it needs to be. I said, he uses a shit analogy. I'm smoking a cigar and equating that to playing trumpet. It makes sense, though. It makes sense. So that when you realize that, then you're like, oh, again, macro to micro, keeping it simple. So that if you're still practicing, the horn can be off your face. For example, if you're doing, Clark, going up. So I'm still playing, the horn is on the face, I still have the finger dexterity, and I'm mimicking and scatting the notes. The tongue is still practicing the fingers. You're still doing it, so the brain activity is still rolling. It's still happening. So when you go back to the horn, you know, you're still continuing the concept. It's just not on your face. So a lot of people don't realize that. Like, you want to work on your double tonguing, after you're doing it outside or off the horn, still do it. Yeah. When you're walking around, fuck what other people think. Oh, that person's crazy. They have no idea what you're going through in your life.
Yeah.
You know, and your friends in high school, oh man, why are you doing this? That doesn't make any sense and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's just dumb. Okay. And you keep moving on. And they get pissed because I'm not getting pissed about it.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm still working on to where points become second nature. They no longer play the instrument. You know, who knows what the hell they're doing? I don't care. But I was still practicing. I was still making that concept. Or if I'm at the house, I'm seeing it in my head while cooking or while watching TV. Hell, I almost wrote my dissertation on video game playing at high equation trumpet performance and pedagogy. And I'm serious about that because through the cutscenes, you can sit there and practice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's a mixture of
I used to do that, like in between games.
I still do that.
Yeah.
You know, but
I'll be on Skype and I mute it and I'm just like playing.
Yeah. You know, but that's about you find better ways to keep performing. You know, and new and interesting ways. You know, my former teacher Jens, good colleague, you know, international soloist, would do these repetitions of 3. Again, of a coin. So if he's working on an excerpt or a really crazy thing, I remember he was playing Pines and Roses brass band of Africa. And she was playing E flat stop and doing this one crazy like or something like that. Played it, moved the coin over. Played it, moved the coin over. Now we have the money shot. Then he can move on to the next thing. But if he messed up, he had to start over again. Same thing with Bob White, former associate principal at LA Phil. He said, do things 3 times and then execute it. So then when you execute it, you can move on. If not, keep doing it.
Okay.
And if you can't get it, stop, put the horn down, go do something else, come back to it and pick up where you first started.
Okay.
Because sometimes people think, well, I just got to practice, Now, mind you, when I say I practice between 4 and 5 or 4 and 7 hours, it's not, it's cumulative. It's not always straight. That's dumb.
Yeah.
Doing this is also practicing, sitting with the horn, without putting the horn to your face, or mimicking the line, you're still practicing. But there was going somewhere with this. Bob White, 3 times, put the horn, put the horn down and come back to it and pick up where you left off. And when you do that, you're figuring out how to practice, Oh, this is what I was saying. Just because you're practicing, what you can do more in 10 minutes than you can do in 60 minutes. The question is, how focused are you at that moment? And sometimes you just got to put the horn down and say, fuck you, and walk off somewhere else. Because if not, you end up chucking it out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to bring that energy to the horn.
Yeah.
And then at that moment, sometimes you're going to say, you know what, I'm done for today. I am done. Horn down, do something, come back to it the next day. You see?
Yeah.
And so you have to realize and figure out what you got to do in order to make things happen, especially when practicing.
See, I think one of the best things that I've done is back when I was at Cal State Fullerton, back when I was there, I wasn't playing every day. I was playing for the ensemble that I was in. I wasn't playing for me. I wasn't enjoying myself. I had lost that drive. I was just like, well, I really just kept saying that, oh, I'm just gonna be a teacher. And now, every time I said it, which just made me sadder and sadder. I'm just like, damn, I'm not gonna be a player.
You have to understand that you have to be impeccable with your words. And what you say, you have made a verbal agreement to the universe. The words you say, they're already out there. If you say, I can't, you will never. Because you're putting in that negative energy, proclaiming that you won't be able to do this. But if you say, I will figure it out, I am going to, or this will happen, you are proclaiming that. You're putting that energy into the universe. And a lot of people don't realize that. And if you say, well, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, then do it.
Yeah.
Fuck it, just do it. If not, then shut up. Yeah. Do something else. Become an underwater basket weaver in the Mojave Desert.
Well, the number one thing that people talk about, when they actually, oh, you went on all these adventures, you did all this traveling. I was just like, it wasn't that much, honestly, if you really think about it. It was like a couple months. And they're like, oh, I wish I can travel. And I was like, you wish? I was like, you can. Go and do it. Go. A lot of them are holding themselves back. They don't want to let go of the things that they have. They have this image of themselves, this reputation that they're trying to uphold. They get stuck in that moment trying to keep this persona about them without being able to just let go of that for a second and go realize that you can go and you can come back to that if you really want to, or you can just be it.
There's a saying I grew up listening to, and it's said in many different ways, but one of the things my parents used to say, my mom would say, let go and let God. And I never really understood that. Let go and let God. It's the thing the old timers used to say. And then over the years, basically what a paraphrase is saying, what I said earlier, quit asking questions and allow things to unfold.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid.
I heard that, I think in a 1990 something interview of Roy Hargrove is where I heard that. And that was that kind of just smacked me in the face, for real.
We got to keep it simple.
Yep.
We overanalyze things. We put things that are more complex than it should be.
Absolutely.
First is just taking it very slowly and slowly build up. Clark, what's the guy's name? Herbert L. Clark was talking about how do we build his His chops to play the crowd limit is so fast. You play something. You started off at one metronome marking and went up a single metronome marking each day. So it was at 60 or 45. By the time he was up to playing this thing, it was at like 72. But he started it. Bum, bum, ba do ba dee ba do be ba do be ba do ba dee ba do be da. And he slowly build, so that the chops were able to do it at a certain tempo. You know, I remember I couldn't double time, man. I hated that mess.
I remember the like when you say I remember the first good you try to put out. You're just like, what?
Like this is dumb.
Yeah.
Who does this? Gypsies. That's who does it. You know? But no, and then when you finally realize how to do it, get up. I remember I was doing I was in all-state, 8th grade all-city orchestra in Columbus, Georgia, and there was a double tonguing section, and it was on My Heart Will Go On. I think that's when, 98, 99, whenever Titanic came out. And everyone was on the whole rave, and I was like, how do you do double time? Like, how do you do that? And then I remember I was my teacher at the time. We used to call this dungeon. It was like the library rooms. You know, he's like, all right, let's get down here. And he used to make me do this double tonguing exercise, and I used to hate it. And I was like, got so angry. It's like, no one can double tongue. No one can stop. Look, nobody can do music. Nobody can freaking double. And he just looked at me like, I was like, what? Oh my God. And I figured it out, and he's like, that's why you do it. Why did you tell me? You know, it was like revelation. You know, but again, you know, when you use that energy to figure that stuff out, man, it happens. It just takes its time. What may take 2 weeks for some person may take 2 years.
Yeah.
If you do it slowly enough, and it may not ever happen. That means you don't need to do that then. That's not your gift. Your gift is something else. That's just a passion. You move on. But good teachers, good educators, I think, will help steer you in the right direction of where you need to go. Good educators. I would say good educators. Because anybody can teach. That's how can you educate someone. But good educators will help move you on your chosen path, depending on what it is. And say, oh, maybe music performance is not for you. Maybe it's music education. Or maybe music education is not for you. Maybe it's performance. Or maybe music in general is not what you need to do. Focus on this once they figure out who you are and what you can do. But it's a process. I say all this to say it's a process. And you learn how to get to that point over a period of time. So yeah, man.
Well, I think it's a little over an hour, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I think just about wrapping up. I want to thank you.
No, man, no worries.
You're about to go on tour. Is any of that going to be streamed? Or?
No, man. I'm getting ready to go to Macau for the full month of January, playing with the orchestra. We're doing Bruckner, this violin concerto, a week's worth of brass quintet music, which is awesome with orchestra. And I've done it before. I'm a member of the orchestra, third utility, and it's pretty hip, man. But it's good to head to Macau and see my Macau family again, and it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. So I'll be heading there in about 5 days.
For sure.
For the month of January.
Awesome. And if anyone wants to check out.
Yeah, if you want to you can check out my website. It's C Jones Trumpet, CJONES Trumpet.com. Mixture of my stuff, my blogs, and what I've been doing. Recording as well. You can also see a couple of videos of me from Glee on that. But if you tell anybody, I will deny it.
Oh, well. Yeah, definitely won't. I just want to thank you again.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I drove down here to get a lesson.
Yeah,
dude.
dude.
That was fantastic.
Oh, it was good.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I
learned a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hope you guys enjoyed it. Catch you on the next one.
See you guys.
Bye.